So I have to make some decisions at this point. And one of them that I might make is that this could be a high petal here, and this one could be underneath, between that one and that one, for example. So this one here is below these two petals, and to do that, what I would do is I'd run a V tool down here, but tilt it, small V tool, just tilt it so that the vertical edge of this chisel is against this petal, and the vertical edge of this chisel on this side is against that petal. So now I'm starting to separate the petals off. And for example here, I might make it that these two petals are at the same height here, in which case this can just come straight down the middle, pointing towards the center. And in this case, I'm going to tilt it over this way because this petal is going underneath. So I'll make a few decisions like that, and I make them up as I go along. I don't have any sort of particular structure. In fact, I deliberately don't plan too much. So I would go round the flower and separate the petals. Again, some of the petals you might want to make like so, rounded like this. So these two petals could be like that, rounded this way instead of in a straight line. So that's another variation you can do. And on this carving, I'm going to be quite inconsistent in that way. So having done that, what I'll do is I'll remove wood from, say, this petal here, take it back. So this is definitely separating out. So this is effectively now a bit of relief carving. If you think about it, you see it elsewhere on the site, that what I do is I line in, like so. This being the subject, this being the background. Let's move that there, that's the background here, subject. Line in, lower the background in some way, and then I'll set this in. And what I will do is I'll use a gouge, and I will, in this case a flat gouge, just press that in, clean that wall up, and at the same time I might even undercut it slightly. So on this one here, so I'll come this way a little bit. This can be a slight curve this way. So we've got a nice sharp edge. And I'm coming down like that, down to the middle and as tidy as I can at the bottom. So essentially I'm going to go round now, separating all these petals fairly randomly, whatever I want, and then we're going to start working on that, the shapes. So let's go round. I've separated out all the petals now, and I'm going to begin shaping them. So again, we have options here. We can leave them fairly flat, so we actually don't do very much. Just keep them fairly simple, fairly flat. That would be one option. We could round part of it over, like we could round this edge over instead of having it square. Okay, so we might need to pull that one down underneath a bit more. So we could have a rounded edge. We could have two rounded edges. We could have two rounded edges and a bit depressed in the middle like this. Or we could have two like that with a little ridge down the middle. I hope you can see that, but as I do a cut here and a cut here, I'm left with a little line down the center here. So you could do that. I could make that even more severe, like so. So I've got quite a high edge here. I could do one that's only a little bit of a way, so instead of the whole length, I go a little bit of a way, like so. And I can use different sizes of these tools, so I could put a narrow one in here and just leave that. So I'm breaking up the surface, making it more complicated and varying what I'm doing. You can have a petal that's fairly soft by rounding over these crests, or you can have one that's quite hard. So work your way around, that's what I'm going to do, work my way around this flower, and decide what I'm doing. Now, if I'm trying to do a consistent one flower, I might try and do the same sort of thing on this flower and something different on the next one. So it's up to you how you play it, and that is a bit of the fun of it. Another idea you might do is actually come, besides this one coming over here, down here, you might bring this around the top, so we actually have a sort of L-shaped depression here. You see, so that's this shape, and again smoothed over. So instead of just coming to the end like that, it does a little bit of a kink. And the other thing, of course, you can do is the whole end of this flower. You might choose not to have that at the same. We might come right down like this. So this petal can come down, up and over. So lots of different things you can do, and in a way you just almost have to let the tools find their own sort of shapes. I'm not going to do the ends quite yet. And if I want to undercut that a bit more, I can run the bead tool under here a little bit, make that a little bit deeper. This one I think I'll do a bit flatter this one. I particularly like having narrower grooves nearer the middle like this, the narrow gouge, just picking those up, see here. It gives a sort of burst effect, which I rather like. Sometimes you have to reset in the edges of the leaves. But you just work your way around and sort those out. I've played around on this sample board, the sample flower, and I've done all 16 petals. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really begin to look like a flower by doing something to the ends of each petal. Taking the edge of the petal, I find a carving tool and just set in the edge like this. So this petal is like so. And the one below, so I'm pushing that down here like that. So I'm now giving the ends of the petals a bit of a shape. Now what I can do is I can undercut here by coming in with the tool this way up, merging with that. So I get the end a sort of sinewy shape. So that might be one thing you do. Or you might keep that end rounded and then actually come over and make this more of a long curve to here. Pull that one in, and then this one sticks out over there. So this is again another shape. So once I've got the main shape, I'll go around and I'll undercut that. And when I get the hang of it, I can undercut it at the same time. So I'm going to work my way around, and this one's going to be a bit more rounded. Try different ends, And of course all this is waste here, we needn't worry about that. Different ends to the petals, and it might be that when you've done that, you might think, you know, that petal might look better if it was given a little twist or something like this. So feel free to go back and just alter that that petal according to, you know, what you see as you go along. Very much a thing about making it up as we go along. So working our way around, trying to be either consistent if you want the same sort of flower, or a bit different, not too exact, and set in the ends of the petal. And already you can see this is beginning to look a bit like a proper flower. There's a bit just broken off here, well, I'm going to just build that in, and that becomes the new shape of my petal. So there we go. I've been around the edge, and you can see how it looks much more like a flower. I've tended to like this edge with a little dip here, and I've also taken a couple of scoops off like that. That gives it a bit more flair. This edge here, all this mess underneath, that you wouldn't normally see because this flower would be next to other flowers or overlapping other flowers, so there isn't really much of a background. But do make sure you've got a nice sharp edge all the way around. And lastly, all we've got to do now is do something with this middle hub, this boss. I'm going to make a bit of an accent first, using the tip of my skew chisel right into the junction of the petals, like so, pushing that in like this. And that gives that a little bit of a shadow, a little bit of definition. And I could use this little punch, which is called an eye punch, a little teardrop punch, in here as well. And that will give you a little bit of a shadow in there. So these are little things you can do to add a little bit of life to the flower. And then in this case I'm going to choose to punch it with this little circular punch. There are lots of different sizes of punches you can get like this, and you can choose to put it all over or part of it. It's entirely again up to your choice, but this one I'm going to punch, so I'll just go around and tap this in, coming right down to the bottom here, like so. So there you have it, an example of one daisy-like flower. It's up to you to make lots of more of these, different shapes, different sizes, different proportions and so on, and have a bit of fun with it.